So Brian, thanks very much for joining us. You there, mate?
G'day, John. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
How are you?
thanks. I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. And hello to everyone out there that's listening too. It's great to be here, and I'm really excited about sharing what I know about Gabriel Method Fitness with the good people that are listening.
All right, excellent. So let's get started. And I got to say, in the work that you're doing with clients, I get nothing, and I mean nothing, but positive feedback from people. People really, really love working with you. And,
Yeah.
and you understand the Gabriel Method principles as well as anyone I know. And from a fitness perspective, you've got a very, very unique take. And so I'm wondering, let's just sort of dive into the whole fitness idea. And that is the biggest thing I know you're going to talk about is cardio. And cardio is not the best for weight loss. And I want to understand that because, geez, all we ever were taught was you got to burn calories. You just keep going and going and burn calories. That's all we ever taught. And you've got a very different message. So I'm wondering if you could share that with us.
Yeah. Well, I think the objective, I think it's, what we need to set out from the very beginning is like, what's the objective of Gabriel Method Fitness? Like, what are we trying to achieve by teaching the principles that we have of Gabriel Method Fitness. And the objective, John, and to the listeners there, is to make, we want to make your body want to be thin. It's not about getting fit or getting strong. Like, all of those things happen, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to make your body want to be thin. And cardio just doesn't make your body want to be thin. Like, if you look at the maths, the pure maths of doing aerobic exercise. And aerobic exercise, I'm talking of like walking, jogging, swimming, at a constant, like, moderate rate. Okay, this will blow people's minds. So 1 kilogram, okay, so about 2 pounds of body fat contains approximately 7,700 calories. Okay, 7,700 calories.
I'm laughing because I know where you're going with this, because I'm thinking of like when I was in New York and I'd be sitting on these I used to use the recumbent stationary bike, which is a little bit like a lazy boy recliner with pedals.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, where you're
with the TV going.
With the TV. And at the end of it, I'd have 300 calories at the most done after an hour. So you're telling me that a kilogram of fat has 7,000 calories.
700. Okay, so like 1 hour of cardio, like moderate, like, doing what you were doing, the maximum amount you're going to burn is 400 calories. Okay, 400 calories. So 400 calories into 7,700 calories, which equals 1 kilo of body fat, means that if cardio was the best for weight loss, you would need to do 19 hours of moderate aerobic activity to burn off 1 kilogram of body fat. Now
that's pretty depressing. Especially if you consider the fact, Brian, that if you did do 19 hours of cardio, you'd probably want about 20,000 calories worth of food over the next couple of days. Just to replenish.
I even remember a cappuccino and a muffin on the way out.
I remember Lance Armstrong. They measured Lance Armstrong, and he needs 10 to 15,000 calories a day from all the work that he's doing. And if you look at it, he's not burning that from a fat perspective if you're looking at it from calories in, calories out. So the math just doesn't work.
No.
So let's just talk about what does work.
Okay, well, what does work, like, is the principles. We've been working hard on this. Like, we've come up with 5 principles of Gabriel Method Fitness, and again, the objective is, doing things that can make your body want to be thin. So the first one is that it needs to be brief. Okay, we keep it nice and short, because we know, and we'll talk about this a bit later, but we know that the short exercise gets the best results. The next one we've got there on our list is playful. Exercise and movement, it's meant to be fun. Like, I've got a little kid, I've got little Harry, and he runs around, he smiles, he laughs, and, you can remember being out back as a kid playing soccer or, whatever you did, just, on the trampoline. It's meant to be a good time. For me, sitting on a bike, staring at a TV screen, turning your legs over in an air-conditioned environment isn't my idea of a good time. So, we want to encourage people to, enjoy movement again, get back to that natural feel of, being outside when you can, and just making exercise not a chore, but, something that you look forward to. So that's one that I'm really sort of hot on, to be honest.
Yeah.
the intensity principle is, it's key, absolutely key to the effectiveness of the GM fitness that we're heading people towards. So we'll talk about that again in a little bit further down the track. Being bendy, there's nothing worse than losing your flexibility. As you get older, you tend to lose your flexibility and think it's just it's just one of those things that happens as you get older, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the case, there are plenty of people that I know that I've trained that regain their flexibility, and your quality of life has improved so much more if you can, remain bendy, as we call it. Rest. Plenty of rest. Rest is when you repair. Rest is when you really get the benefit of the work that you've done in your exercise, and it's integral, absolutely integral again to your success.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of what you mean and what we mean when we say get your body to want to be thin, as opposed to just burning calories. Yeah. And so we talk a lot about this principle where the standard approach to weight loss is that you somehow force yourself to lose weight through calorie control and extreme exercise, looking at it as a calorie in, calorie out. And we're taking a kind of a broader approach and saying, why does the body want to be fat or want to be thin? And when you look at it from that approach, it makes a lot of sense why short and intense would make your body want to be thin, because it's really, if you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, if you were out walking in the woods thousands of years ago and a bear chased you, you're not going to want to do a 40-minute cardio walk. No. A power walk. You're going to do, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You're not going to do 40 minutes of cardio. You're going to do 5 to 10 seconds, depending on whether or not you live or die. Yeah. 5 to 10 seconds all out. And that short intense causes all of this chemistry that makes your body say, hey, we need to be thin or we're dead. Yeah. And that's how we came up with that originally conceptually, but you've been able to demonstrate it through studies and all kinds of research. So let's just talk a little bit about the intensity and how it changes your biochemistry.
Okay. I just want to explain this, and I hope it makes sense to people. And please ask questions if it doesn't. So, with this Gabriel Method Fitness, we actually, when we talk about exercise, we talk about work-ins. Not workouts. We talk about work-ins because that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve, use a positive stress to create an environment, within your body that makes your body want to be thin. So,
in other words, what you're saying, Brian, is you want to change the internal chemistry of the body so that it wants to be as light and thin as possible as an overall mechanism.
Correct. And when you talk of internal chemistry, what are you talking about? You're talking about the environment of which your cells are bathed. Yeah. Now, you've got 50 to 75 trillion cells, depending on who you talk to, and they're all bathed in an environment. And how do those cells? Basically, the cells do as they're told, depending on what they're told to do. So, how does the brain, communicate with those cells? It uses hormones to tell the cells what to do. It tells them whether to be, to store fat or burn fat. That's what we're talking about with wanting to get thin. So when your body's under chronic stress, the brain responds by releasing hormones that turn your fat programs on. You have a slower metabolism, your appetite increases. You go into fat storage mode. We understand that. However, with an acute stress like exercise, your brain still... this type of exercise, this high-intensity interval training that we'll talk of, the brain still responds by releasing hormones, John, but instead of turning your fat programs on, another survival response is initiated, which is more appropriate, to that stress, and it's the get thin, get eaten response where it does the opposite of the fat programs. Basically, the message that's being sent by your brain to the cells is, danger, danger. I need to be lean. I need to be fast. That predator is, could kill me at any minute. Forget about fat storage. I've got a whole new list of priorities here. I need to drop weight. So, you shut off your fat programs. Your metabolism speeds up, and you go into fat burning mode as opposed to fat storage mode. Do you think that makes sense to people?
Yeah, well, we're going to hear from people in just a second because I'm going to bring Jenny on. But the important thing here, and this is something that people don't understand, is that these different survival mechanisms that we have, like the fat programs and the get thinner, get eaten programs, there's survival programs designed to keep you alive, but they have different hierarchies. So, for example, the get thinner, get eaten adaptation, that is the program that gets activated when your body feels that for survival reasons you need to be thin or you're going to be dead, that program overrides the fat programs a million times. It's like a switch that says, hold the brakes. You may be in a famine, you may be whatever, but buddy, we need to be thinner. We're dead. Nothing's more important. So that overrides it. And what people don't understand is that when you get this right, it's actually easier to lose weight than it is to gain weight when your body wants to be thin. There's nothing on earth that's easier. The problem is that the way everyone goes about it is by activating the fat programs instead of the get thin programs through cardio and through restriction and restrictive dieting and things like that. And then you end up going to war with your body. So when you do it right, there's nothing easier. Like at the very end of my weight loss, it was just flying off of me. And so before we get into really what we mean by intensity, because I want to talk about that a little bit more, I want to bring Jenny in and see if we can get some of the questions. We're getting lots and lots of questions from people all over, and just hear from what people are saying. Jenny, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Great. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Okay, good.
Firstly, would you like a couple of the exercises, the favourite exercise answers?
Let's hear it.
Because there were some really good ones. Some funny ones, as you can imagine. But basically,
any of them? I just want to know: was any of them watching The Simpsons while you're on a recumbent stationary bike? My favorite.
Well, there were the usual swimming, dancing, Pilates, volleyball, walking, yoga, horse riding, etc. But there was a nice one from a lady in Argentina, running, because I've been to Argentina and it's a fantastic scenery, you know, so that's a great place to be running. And people have said, you know, running outdoors as compared to running indoors and things like this, and cycling outdoors, and swimming underwater as in holding your breath, and shell collecting on long beaches, and hiking in the mountains. And there was a good one from Jill. She said sleeping.
When you go to work, there's nothing more important than sleep. It's true.
And there was sex, and there was one that I've never heard of called Turbo Fire.
Turbo Fire.
Well, I don't know that one either.
That is, yes.
I wonder if it's like those paint wars, you know, like where you like go around and with these machine guns full of paint balls. And
yeah.
That's got to be a fun one. I kind of
definitely. That hurts.
We should have a Gabriel Method paintball competition. Okay. All right, good. So go ahead, hon.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so what about questions? Are people asking,
yes.
Do you have questions for us? Yeah.
Yes, will Brian address exercise in water? It's the only method I can use. I'm curious what he thinks of swimming or water walking and jogging, etc. in water.
I love it.
Okay.
Go ahead, talk about it, Brian. What do you love about it? What's good?
Okay, well, I love it. I just absolutely love it. You know, like probably the majority of my clients here in Adelaide are 55, 60 plus, you know, and I'm lucky enough to work near a pool, and I just use it all the time, you know, because they've got sore joints or they've, you know, got a little bit of weight on. You know, there is nothing better than doing some, you know, like running on the spot in the water is great, because, you know, it makes you feel free, takes the load of the weight off, and you can have a fantastic work in the water. So I'm really keen for people to do that, and just like feeling that physicality and that lightness in the water, I think is really encouraging for people, and it starts to, you know, build that awareness of like where they're heading. So I'm really keen for people to enjoy that and celebrate that.
I want to add to that too, because this morning I was at the beach and the tide was really, really strong, and I was doing this thing just out of fun as I was leaving, as I was running. I was probably in water 3/4 up my thighs. That's about how deep the water was, and it was pulling me back out. And I was running to the shore, but I was being pulled back out. And that resistance, as I was running, I could feel it in my core and my stomach. I could feel it in all my legs, and there wasn't any kind of compression, because I can't really run anymore unless I'm running uphill or have some serious, really good running shoes, because it's just too much compression on my joints. My body doesn't respond well. But that type of running is just beautiful because there's zero compression. And I
Mm.
want to make a really kind of like a esoteric fine point distinction between doing work-ins or doing running like we're talking about in the water versus actual swimming. And this is a really fine point, but I've heard bodybuilders talk about this. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, that if your main exercise is just swimming, as in swimming laps, you're definitely going to get some benefit out of it. But again, you've got to use the intensity factor to it. But what happens is that if you're spending long periods of time swimming in the water, your body's still going to want to keep a kind of like a layer of fat because it makes you more buoyant. And remember that your body is so brilliantly architecturally designed to keep you safe. It's all about survival. So if the stress is that you're in water for long periods of time that you're not standing in but actually swimming in, then there's a stress to keep you afloat. So if you're applying a stress to keep you afloat, your body's going to want to keep a very thin layer of fat. And if you look at some of the best swimmers in the world, yeah, man, they're in great shape, but for all the work that they do, they're still the best ones always have a kind of like a layer to keep them a little bit more buoyant. So,
sure.
So doing the work-in type of things in the water is great for your joints. If you are a swimmer, I would recommend the short intensity thing applies even more to you.
Mm. That's right. Getting about waist deep, and, lifting your knees up and pumping your arms. We're doing some high intensity work like that is, it's great for you and it makes you feel terrific.
Yeah. Okay, so Jen, do you want to ask us another question and then we'll keep going?
Yes, Lorna is relating to the slide up about how to use intensity to change our biochemistry. And she said, could you please explain what changes occur in our biochemistry?
Okay, we're going into that right now.
Okay.
We even have a slide for it. Okay. So, Brian, let's talk. So, Jen, we'll come back a little bit later. So, Brian, let's talk a little bit more about what we mean by intensity.
Okay. So, when we're talking about intensity, we're trying to replicate the stress as though you are under threat of a predator attacking you. So, it's really key to the effectiveness of the principles is that intensity needs to be high based on your present level of fitness. I don't want anyone, going out who hasn't run for 10 years and like tearing muscles. That's not appropriate. But if you're in the habit of going for a walk, just like picking that intensity up, so you're like walking as quickly as you can, for the time being, like at the beginning, starts to initiate that chemistry that we're talking about. So that intensity needs to create the positive stress of the get thin, get eaten principle for it to be effective.
Yes. Now you talk about if you think of it conceptually, like we said before, if a bear came out of the woods and started chasing you, what are you going to do? You're not going to be moving at 50% capacity. You're not going to be moving at 80%. You're going to be moving at 100%, and it's not going to be for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's going to be for a few seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. That's what it's going to be for, and it's life or death. And so that's the concept. And again, Brian, you brought up a good point about if you haven't exercised for a while. Just as a general statement, it's really important to get your doctor's approval before you start any type of exercise program. So you need to have a checkup. You need to figure out what you can and can't do. So I just want to make that point. And so let's talk about that because I know you use this method called the Tabata protocol. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I'll just give people a little bit of a history of the Tabata protocol. A Japanese researcher named Izumu Tabata did this control study where he had a couple of groups. One did like moderate aerobic activity, and the other one followed his protocol of like doing 20 seconds of high intensity, followed by a 10-second rest period, and they did that in an 8-cycle routine. They did that over the course of I think it was 8 weeks from memory, 8 weeks or 12 weeks. I can't be sure of that. But what he found was that at the end of that, when he measured their statistics in terms of like how much body fat they used, their aerobic capacity, and also their strength, surprisingly, he found that the people that did that high intensity interval training, the 20 second and 10, lost more weight, improved their aerobic capacity, and also gained greater strength. So in terms of like fitness training, when that first came out, everyone was like, well, hang on a sec, we've been telling people to run 20 minutes 3 times a week and we're all completely wrong. So it was like, egg on our face. And now you see in the press, it's so often now everyone's talking about high intensity interval training, which, John, like hats off to you. You've been sort of touting that for like several years now as the most effective way to create that chemistry within that makes your body want to be thin. And, just a little bit on that chemistry, what it does is it makes your cells very sensitive to insulin. And when your cells become sensitive to insulin, they go into fat burning mode. When they're resistant to insulin, they go into fat storage mode. So it's really that change in the internal chemistry of making your cells sensitive to insulin that has that great capacity on making your body want to be thin and that loss of body fat.
Right. So Brian, I just want to clarify this Tabata protocol that you're talking about. So people, so the test was that one group did just a typical type of workout that's like 20 minutes
30
of cardio
minutes.
or something. 30 minutes of cardio. So in the Tabata protocol, you're saying is 20 seconds of high intensity with 10 seconds rest. So it's 30 seconds, and it's repeated 8 times. So basically, that's 4 minutes of exercise.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So 12 minutes for a week, as opposed to, I think it was like, an hour and a half.
Okay. So basically, we're talking about 4-minute types of exercises a few times a week. That's pretty substantial. I think that's pretty amazing that you're able to get better results from just 4 minutes. But as I said, in my own experiences, where I came up with it was just conceptually, and also for my own weight loss, it just made more sense, and I got better results when I did things like this. So it's definitely what we've been applying. So let's talk about the benefits of keeping your exercise routine short.
Okay, well, the benefits of it being short is that it has to be short, really, for it to be effective. If it's too long, straight away I start to think that, the intensity of your exercise isn't high enough, because you just can't sustain that type of intensity that we're looking for long periods of time. We're just not designed, to do that. So, we're looking at like, 10 to 15 minutes of exercise is, we say is, often the best. Now, you need to have a little bit of a warm-up, you need to have a little bit of a cool-down, and in between there, somewhere between like 4 to 5 minutes of the high-intensity stuff is all that's required to, generate that chemistry that we're after.
Yeah. So basically, you're doing maybe within 10 to 15 minutes. You're doing a 5-minute warm up. You're doing the actual 4 to 5 minutes of Tabata, and then a 5-minute cool down, something like that. Is that correct?
Like that's right, John. So if you're doing a structured workout, like a structured workout, and a lot of this is again, like as a principle that you can apply to all types of things that you're doing, whether you're down the beach playing or whatever. But if you're doing a structured workout, this is what I would recommend that you do. I would do a 4-minute warm-up of some sort of aerobic activity. So that might be a walk or a bike ride or, a gentle jog, but just a swim, just, something to get your muscles going, your blood flowing, your connective tissue like warmed up, because you're about to place, a fairly intense stress on your body. So you want all those neurological muscular changes to be, ready. Then I would go into the 20-second, 10-second interval training for another 4 minutes. So there's 4 plus 4, so you're up to 8 minutes of activity, and then I'd finish off with like 4 minutes of recovery rest where you cool down. You might do a little bit of slower aerobic work and finish off with some gentle stretching that you're familiar with. So there's 12 minutes. If you could do that 2-3 times a week, you're creating a positive stress, making your body want to be thin. So it's pretty doable, and it will have a great benefit for people.
Now, you talk a lot about the difference, Brian, between the acute stress and the chronic stress. And you make a really, really good point here about if your workouts are too long, they're not an acute stress anymore. Now, again, the acute stress, the periodic acute stress is going to activate that get thin or get eaten adaptation. The chronic stress is going to activate more of the fat program type of thing. And you're saying that if the workout's too long, it can actually activate that chronic stress and activate your fat programs. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the whole overtraining syndrome is, well and truly proven that, people that often have trained, too much, and we've all seen, aerobic instructors and gym instructors that, train consistently, and continually, but, have a weight problem, and you wonder why. Now we understand, what's going on. But another thing that people need to be mindful of, John, I think before they embark on an exercise program, I just want them to, look at this in a holistic perspective. That, if your fat program's wrong, like, if you're chronically tired, if you're getting really poor sleep, if your nutrition is low, if you're chronically dehydrated, you need to look at those things, almost initially, like, first, like, make sure you're getting the good nutrition in, make sure you're drinking enough water, make sure you're trying to get some sleep. So, say you're well rested, so when you go up and do this intensity exercise, it's having the right effect. It's just not making you more tired.
Well, Brian, as you know, I mean, when we do our coaching programs, if we're doing a 6-month coaching program, when do we usually do exercise? We usually don't do exercise or start talking about exercise until month 2 or 3. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Month 3, that's when we
3.
start bringing it in, and that's depending on your circumstances. Like if you're feeling pretty good and you are eating well, then by all means, get into it. It is a positive stress, and it is great for you. But if you've got some real stuff going on and you're feeling like, God, the last thing I feel like doing at the moment is any exercise, then don't do exercise. It sort of goes against the whole what we're saying here. But you've got bigger issues to sort out. Let yourself sort them out, and then when you're ready to exercise, you'll know you're ready, and then you can really fully enjoy the benefit of the Gabriel Method fitness, and it just doesn't become like an exercise routine that you start for a couple of weeks and it falls away. You enjoy it, you'll feel the benefit, and then there'll be no stopping you.
Well, the beauty is that once you address the fat programs, whatever stresses are activating the fat programs, you have a lot more energy, because part of the byproducts of having your fat programs activated is you're just really, really tired. It's almost like if you were in a famine and living outdoors in winter, you would, you're just going to want to shut down. You're not going to want to go out and play volleyball. Your body's in the shutdown mode. So we got to get your body out of shutdown mode. And I remember when I was being interviewed by Dr. Howard Leibowitz at the Leibowitz Longevity Center, I explained this, and he said that concept makes so much sense to him that he does the same thing. That first you get people out of chronic stress mode, then they have a lot more energy, a lot more passion. Then you hit the exercise. And one thing we haven't talked about yet, which I just want to talk about, is we do something that I don't know if anybody else is doing that I find extremely effective, is that we incorporate visualization into our work-ins. I'm wondering if you can talk about a little bit how you do that.
I love the fact that we're using visualizations. But, like all top-level athletes, or, a lot of them use visualizations as part of their preparation, and we're all like, oh, okay, that's because they're top-level athletes. Well, they've got the same biology as us. So, why don't we start using it as well? And, I come from a background where I was a sprinter, and I always used to, imagine, I can remember, as a kid, lying in my bed and, imagining the perfect race the next day. And, I had quite a successful career with sprinting. So, it sort of worked for me. So what we're doing is we're making the whole, exercise like a mind-body experience, which is, I think is quite groundbreaking. So we use a visualization, prior to your exercise to create that mind-body connection, which creates, real neurological and biological change. And then we go into like the physicality of the stress that we're applying through the exercise, and we come up with a really unique way of exercise, of fitness that, like you say, no one else is doing at the minute.
Yeah, I know also that when I was doing a lot of exercise, when I was losing weight, I used to do this bike ride, and as I was riding up the hill, this would be the one part of the bike ride that was hard, was this hill, about 2 minutes and a half of kind of stand-up sprinting. I would imagine something was chasing me, and your body doesn't know the difference between a real and imagined experience. So if you're and that's the beauty of visualization. So if you're imagining something's chasing you when you're sprinting, that reinforces this whole get thin or get eaten adaptation.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, I'd love to do a study like the Tabata protocol, but also take another group and apply the visualization and see what their results are. Because my guess from the experiences that we've been doing and the results that we've been getting with our coaches, Brian. I'm sure that our results would far surpass just the typical standard exercise Tabata protocol of any type. So
absolutely.
So, yeah.
There's a lot of studies that that do show that. That absolutely do show that. That they've had one control group that actually does the exercise, and then these other control group that just thinks that they're doing the exercise, and then they measure them at the end, and there's not much of a difference between the ones that have actually done it and the ones that have been thinking that they've been doing it. So if you incorporate,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. If you think about thinking about it and then doing it, then you sort of like magnify the effect of both of them, and then the end result's got to be it's got to be fantastic. And I've found with my own coaching clients that by doing that, what it does is it brings in a real awareness. I would imagine, I'll be honest with people, I've never had a weight problem, and often when I talk to people, it's like, I've never, you sort of get that idea that they just don't have that, that physical presence of themselves, or the belief that they have is that they're just, this overweight person that doesn't have this, physical body, good quality physical body underneath, and for me, it's completely opposite. Like, when I look at a person that's got a weight problem, I just think of them, I just shed the weight off them, and I see this, physicality, this beautiful physicality underneath this temporary, fat coat. That's going to go. That's temporary as far as I'm concerned, when I'm looking or, talking to the person. Yeah. Now, when you're doing the visualizations, you can bring yourself, you can start imagining yourself, being physical in your lean body, and then when you go into your actual workout, if you can sort of transport that image whilst you're doing your work in, I think it's really empowering and really positive for the people, because they start to feel their muscles. That just brings that awareness of their physicality and their potential that they have, John, which I think is unlimited for all people.
Yeah, and I know you deal with, we deal with people on all sides of the exercise spectrum. So we've got the one group that absolutely hates exercise, won't touch it, doesn't want to have anything to do with it, and that's fine, and we know how to handle that. And then there's another group that are exercising 7 days a week, an hour, 2 hours. They can't exercise anymore. They hate it. It's grueling, but they feel like they've painted themselves into a corner because they can't stop now. They got to keep going more and more, and we've learned that more and more is the worst thing you can do in that situation. Mm-hmm. When you have a client like that, how do you make that transition into making it more playful and fun and less grueling and less hours? What do you do?
Well, for a lot of them, it's just an understanding, an awareness of how, is it the word futile? Yeah, futile the exercise is on their objective of wanting to get thin, of making their body want to be thin. Once they have an awareness of it, it's like an aha moment. They think, oh, what am I doing? And then I explain to them that, what you can do to have the greater influence, and it's an easy shift because they've had that experience with exercise. But, the point you're talking about of making it playful and fun, a lot of people have had a, sort of poor experience with exercise, so there's a negativity associated with it. What I try to do is when I'm coaching people, I try to find something that they enjoy. If they like going for a walk on the beach, like that lady was saying she enjoys, picking up shells as she goes along the beach, that's great, What we try to do is it doesn't need to be structured, the working to have the correct effect. The principle just needs to be applied. So if she was walking along the beach, she might pick up, 5 shells and then, run for 10 meters. Pick up a few more shells. It's just about incorporating the principle into an enjoyable activity, and then you get the benefits of it.
Beautiful. So when you're dealing with clients,
yeah,
and they're just really, really burned out, So what's the first thing you're gonna tell someone like that to get them to get started in this kind of playful, kind of fun way?
Well, if they're burnt out, it means that the exercise isn't appropriate.
Yeah.
For them, they need to rest. Right. Rest is really important. I think they need to look at, what they're doing. If it's not matching what they're wanting to achieve from what they're doing, then, something needs to change. For example, say people like doing, I don't want to put people up. People like doing Zumba, if they like running, if they like, walking with their partner, or if they like, walking their dog. I definitely don't want to discourage people from doing that, John. You know, aerobic activity, cardio activity, you know, definitely has its benefit in that it like reduces your cortisol levels, you know, can make you feel good, which will in turn, you know, turn your fat programs off, you know, marginally. However, the high intensity stuff, this GM fitness will turn it off, you know, will have a greater influence, you know, on your chemistry. So when we're looking at the whole cardio thing, I don't want to discourage people from doing it. I just want them to be mindful of the fact that when they are doing it, it may not be having the results that they're after, that it might be making them chronically tired and therefore exacerbating their, you know, their weight issue.
Yeah, I know what we usually, it's like when I talk to someone, for example, that's working out 7 days a week, the first thing I say to them is, because usually when you deal with someone like that, and you tell them to exercise less, it's a huge red flag for them, because they're going to think immediately they're going to gain weight, which is not the case. But in order to do that transition, what I know we usually say to them is, or what I usually say to them is, look, do the same number of workouts that you're doing, just do it on 3 to 4 days a week and have 3 solid rest days, because you need that rest to recuperate. And once you have that rest, then you have more and more energy, and then things can start working for you. But I want to switch topics just for 1 second and talk about this thing about having a flexible body and why that's so important for not only overall health but also for fitness and for having energy.
Yeah, that's right. So I think everyone understands, you know, the benefits of why to increase your, you know, have a bendy body. Yeah, you can move. What do you think?
I'm not so sure, because I'm just discovering it myself more and more now, because I don't have a naturally bendy body. So what happens is, when I do spend time doing flexibility type exercises, I find that I have so much more energy throughout the day. And just to give you an example, like when you're walking, right, when you extend your leg, the back of your leg, your hamstring, the back of your leg is being stretched. Now, if you've got really, really tight hamstrings, which I do, every time you stretch your leg to walk, you're fighting yourself. And it actually takes more energy of the opposite muscles to move your leg, because you're fighting the tightness of your leg. And then if you want to bend down, it becomes tough because you're fighting all the tightness in your back. So it's like if you were running with your fists clenched the whole time. It's going to just be much harder to move with your fist clenched. To me, when you're not flexible, every single step you take requires more effort and debilitates you. And we've also found, didn't we find some interesting studies recently about how the connective tissue in our bodies is sort of like this energy matrix where energetic electric energy runs through. And when the connective tissue is blocked or it's stiff, that energy can't run through it. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's right. So it's almost they found that, you know, those connective tissues are like conductors of energy, and the freer they are, then the less resistance that you have, you know, for this energy to flow through you, which, you know, increases your vitality. So that's why, you know, stretching and flexibility on an energetic level can make you feel so good. You know, like do some simple stretches or some yoga, and you walk away, you know, feeling amazing. You know, more so than just increasing your flexibility, it's just promoted this internal vitality that you can enjoy. You know, other things that it does, like it's, you know, really fantastic for your circulation. You know, if you've got poor, you know, circulation to your feet and legs, you know, by doing some simple, like, you know, quadricep stretches and hamstring stretches, and in particular, like your calf stretch, you know, your calf muscle, you know, one of your calf muscles is known as your, excuse me, is known as your soleus muscle. And your soleus muscle in Latin means pump. So effectively, that muscle is like the pump of your legs. And often they can get so tight is that you'll see people, they'll have, you know, they'll retain fluid, you know, around their ankles and in their feet. It's because they haven't got that lymphatic flow. They haven't got that you know, that drainage of their lower limbs. Now, often that's caused by like tight soleus muscles. So by stretching your legs, particularly like your calf muscles, you know, that's one way that you can not only improve, you know, your circulation, but you can start reducing like fluid retention, and improve your mobility that way and your general level of well-being.
Quite frankly, just having issues with flexibility, I can just tell you that being inflexible, plain and simple, is exhausting. And it's a shame because it's a simple, easy way to get a lot of energy back. So I'm just wondering if you can give us a couple of handy tips for improving flexibility.
Okay. The key to flexibility, there's two things, is consistency of doing that and the duration of the hold. They're the two things that you need to be aware of. Now, there's a myriad of different stretches out there that you can do, but it needs to be a relaxing experience. You don't want to force a stretch. You want to go into a stretch, relax into the stretch, use some deep breathing or just normal breathing techniques so it's an enjoyable experience. But when you get into a position where you feel your muscle, you don't want excruciating pain. You just want an awareness of the stretch of the muscle. Just hold it, breathe through it. Use your power of visualization. Just imagine those muscular fibers, stretching and releasing, and just keep that breathing, going. Make it an enjoyable experience. And you need to hold that stretch for, greater than 30 seconds. Anything sort of less than that won't really provide too much benefit. But, somewhere between the 30 seconds to the 2 minutes is a nice, general rule to hold the stretch for.
Yeah, that's always the problem with me is that I just hate holding stretches for longer than 30 seconds. But I discovered that it's better to just do a couple of stretches and hold them longer than a bunch of stretches where you're not holding them longer. So yeah. I'm getting there, and it's making a big difference, I can tell you, in my energy. And I definitely encourage everybody to incorporate that flexibility. And I know when you work with people, that's a big thing with you is you figure out ways to incorporate that flexibility into it. So,
yeah, that's right. It might be just a couple, like you said.
Yeah, so let's just talk about this is one of the most important keys, and that is rest. And we've touched on it a little bit, but let's really talk about this for a second because people do not understand this at all. And I would have to say I'm going to go out on a limb and say the rest is more important than the workout for weight loss. So let's talk about that.
Okay. I agree with you absolutely, and I've been a fitness trainer for a long time, but I think the importance of the rest is underestimated enormously. So you do the work, you create the chemistry by doing your work in. If you don't allow your body to recover, that is, repair and build itself stronger, adapt to the stress. Actually, that's how it's good. So you do the stress, which is the positive stress of making your body want to be thin, and then your body has to go off and adapt to that stress. And it's in that adaptation that the improvement occurs. Now, if you don't give your body time to adapt to the stress, then you're not going to get the benefit of applying that positive stress. So the rest is extremely important and key to the effectiveness of the work that you've done whilst you're doing your training.
Go ahead. Yeah, I know where you're going with this. So I'll just segue for that. And one of the things you talk a lot about is the concept of overtraining syndrome. If you don't have enough rest, can you talk a little bit about that for us?
Okay, so overtraining syndrome occurs when you obviously do too much training and you don't rest. What happens is you elevate your cortisol levels. When your cortisol levels become elevated, you become insulin resistant, and as a result of becoming insulin resistant, your fat programs get turned on, causing you to gain weight. And another one is you decrease your immune system. I've seen this so many times. People, particularly around this time of year, they'll embark on their New Year's resolution. So they'll hit the gym and they'll be there every day, and they'll be punishing themselves. And then by January 20, they're sick because as a result of doing all that training, cortisol levels have increased, which will suppress your immune system, making you more prone to, picking up an infection, and, their great intention has, fallen away, and they're just back in their cycle again for another year. So it's really important to recognize that fact. And just like a little side note, that if you do get sick, quite often, have a look at your cortisol levels. Are you getting enough rest? Because that has a massive influence on your immune response. Anyway, sort of further going on from the overtraining syndrome, then you start to suffer chronic fatigue, And then the last thing you want to do is do exercise.
Yeah. So let's just review these 5 principles. I think it's so important that people understand them. So we've got brief, playful, intense, bendy, plenty of rest, and I would add to that visualization. So when you combine all those things, you've got something really, really powerful. And so, Brian, I just want to ask you, you're our head coach. You've been a coach the longest. And I know that not only do you apply these types of exercise principles, but you do many other things. You deal with people's issues of stress in general and work-related issues and emotional issues. What's the work like for you being a Gabriel Method coach?
It can be hard work, to be honest with you. Well, it can be hard work because it's very personal. You're working with people on a one-on-one. You're working on people one-on-one, and a lot of the issues that they have are big. They got some big stuff going on, which needs to be addressed and needs to be identified. And once it's identified and they've freed it in terms of they've realised that it's something that's having an influence on their on their weight issue. The identification is the key, John. Like the good thing is, what I find with the coaching is that I don't have all the answers, but I am getting quite good at identifying the reasons why people that programs are on, and then we can send them off. Then we can provide them with the help. We've got the tools to help them. It's that identification. I think sometimes when you're in the moment, you have a different perspective of what's happening to you, and then when someone external listens to your story, you can say, well, seems like a bit of a no-brainer. That seems to be it, and they're like, oh, right, okay, cool, and then away you go.
Well, I think one of the things that we've all gotten really good at now over the last, well, for me it's years, and for you it's a couple of years now, is exactly that, is identifying people's fat triggers. Because you hear different stories, you hear repeating stories so many times that you get really, really good at it. And I do think that is the key and the most crucial issue, is to be able to identify your fat triggers. Now, when we first started, we could identify people's fat triggers, but then what do you do about it? So you talk to someone and they've got an emotional issue from a abusive situation that happened when they were a kid. Well, what do you do about it? Now, that's the part where I think we really, really refined the whole process, where we know what to do with it, we know where to go with it, and we've got all of these tools now and resources and places to go. Now, originally when you first started, it was sort of like all in one. You were doing everything. You were wearing all the hats. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I was it. It was unbelievable. It was great and it was exciting, but I didn't, we needed more, it was a bigger issue. There was bigger issues than my experience could sort of, use to help people. Now we've got all these fantastic professionals, working within your team. So, for me, my job has really got a lot easier in the fact that, I can talk to people about what I know about, and then if they need, other help, we've got other specialists that we can draw on that can, they've got, like you say, they've got the tools to help them, deal with the triggers that will be turning their fat programs on. So it's definitely an expanded network, and I think it's a fantastic resource for people.
Yeah, I mean, basically everyone that we've done with these webinars over the last week, Neil, Paul, Heather, and yourself are all part of our coaching network. So when somebody comes to you, and you realize that they need to work on their stress, you're going to be able to send them over to Paul. When you're talking to somebody and you realize that there's a serious digestion issue and they're not able to absorb fats, or they need to detoxify, you're going to be able to send them to Heather. So in this new coaching experience, I think is pretty fabulous that way. So I just want to point out to people that if you have any interest, if you think it might be something suitable for you, that we have this new program, the Ultimate Coaching Experience. As of today, before this webinar, we had exactly 10 spots left for this program, and it's filled up pretty quickly, and it's by application only. So you go to thegabrielmethod.com/ultimate. That's ultimate for the ultimate coaching experience, and you apply, and then we have someone that will call you within a week and discuss your application with you. So And then if you get started, you'll get started very quickly. You'll meet with a head coach, and they'll put together a whole program for a 3 to 6 month total transformation. This is by far the most intense and comprehensive coaching that we've ever done, and I know I'm really excited about it. And Brian, I know you're looking forward to it too.
Yeah,
is that right?
And just that word that you said, like, of transformation. That's what happens. Like, you go into it to lose weight, but it can effectively like change your life. For the better. I've had people I've coached and they've got new careers, they've got married, they're having babies. It's like, man, they thought they were coming in here for a weight loss program, and they've come out the other side with this, this brand new life that they sort of had only dreamed of, and now it's becoming a reality, which I just love. I just love that whole holistic feel to it.
Well, that's the thing, because a lot of times weight is the result of problems in your life. So when you deal with your life issues, the weight goes away. And on that page, if you go to that page, thegabrielmethod.com/ultimate, there's a video of a girl named Tiffany, a 25-year-old girl who's got 5 kids, totally transformed her life. It's just unbelievable, and many other transformation stories and videos on there that you can watch. And so the type of successes that we're seeing are really cool. So